This episode of the Capsule in Conversation is brought to you by WeCure. A leader in health tourism, WeCure offers specialist EMDR trauma treatment whilst you reflect and heal in the Mediterranean. Reset your mind and well-being. Speak to WeCure. wecure.co.uk/capsule.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Capsule in Conversation. I'm Natalie Anderson and today I'm joined by author, broadcaster and serial founder Deborah Coughlin to talk waking up with well-being, the words of women and what it means to be a feminist in 2020. So sit back, relax and get ready to join in with our conversation. Hello all, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you've all had a great week. I know that things are really tough for so many of us right now, but we are going to do our best today to keep your spirits up and to keep you feeling well. And my special guest today is on a mission to help us all out with this as the founder of the fabulous Wakey TV. She's also an author, producer and contributor to Stylist and The Guardian. She's a lady of many talents. It's the fabulous Deborah Coughlin. Hi Deborah.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me on the Capsule. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm excited as well. I mean, before we get started, that you have so many ventures that we need to talk about. But firstly, and this is what I've kind of had to ask all of my guests this year, is how are you dealing with 2020?
Well, we've moved. So we've moved to the other side of the country. So we're in Wales now. We were in London before. So that's a big change, kind of spurred on by lockdown, to be honest. And I started a psychotherapy course because in lockdown I was like, what do I actually want to learn? Like, what can I use this time for? And I'm a huge fan of therapy. And I thought, actually, do you know what? I'd really love to understand how it works. So I'll start quite an in-depth course. And so, yeah, so I'm trying to make it work for me and my family, basically, somehow, like this horrible situation, somehow make it work, even though it can't work this year, can't work the way that we thought it was going to work. We were planning to be in Mexico for most of March and April.
Oh my goodness.
A real traveling kind of year. So that just flew out the window. So yeah.
But I think so many people have had to do that, haven't they? We've had to all pivot our businesses, our plans, and almost kind of reassess and step back. And as you've just said then, you know, take the time to think about how you can be productive in this time. And in some respects, some businesses have really flourished because of that. And they've been able to offer so much more with platforms like even Zoom. I mean, who knew really what Zoom was like 12 months ago?
Absolutely. I think, Zoom are doing very well. Obviously. I was on a call actually with the women in business in Wales the other day, and we were all on Zoom. And for some people, it does feel impossible. Like their businesses require being face to face, or things that people need when they're going to work, when they're going to an office. But I do think that there is room here for creativity and innovation. And that there are opportunities here. It may not always seem like it, but I think there is. And yeah, that's something that I'm really keen on, not only doing more research into myself, like, you know, who are the people who have really made crises work, you know, found the opportunity, not in a gross exploitative way, but in like a positive way.
Yeah.
And how can we all kind of learn from them, basically?
Well, I mean, you, as I kind of touched on earlier, you are a woman of many talents. And, you know, you're an author, you're a broadcaster, you're a producer. I mean, literally, you are clearly one of these people who just has creativity just oozing out of them. And also what I love about you, Deborah, as well, is you're not afraid to turn your hand to different things. So, you know, whether it is digital media, whether, you know, with Wakey TV, or whether it is putting together a feminist choir with Gaggle, or whether it's then going out and writing an amazing book. I mean, do you think that that's kind of that creative instinct in you just has to be fed in some respect? So even now, like with your therapy, you know, you'll find new ways to do it. You won't just be stuck in a box.
Yeah, it's so it's sometimes it's really hard for me to kind of look back at what I've achieved, and it's really interesting hearing you talk about it, actually.
It's a lot.
because I'm like, oh god, yeah, it is quite a lot of different things, and that is quite an achievement. But in a way, I think that, you know, my CV is very unconventional, and so that sometimes makes me also go, oh god, have I done the right thing? Have I jumped about too much? You know, but I've really just always gone with my gut. And the opportunities that I've seen in front of me, I've kind of grabbed onto and gone with. There's definitely an instinct in me which needs to try new things. And but I try not to do it too quickly. I try and harness that a little bit and use it in a sensible way. When I was younger, it wasn't quite so sensible, but it's a bit more sensible now.
I was going to say, have you learned through these different processes? Because like when I was looking at the feminist choir Gaggle, which is just incredible, and everyone should go and check it out. You know, it's a punk feminist kind of angsty movement, and you know, the songs and just everything about it was just, I mean, but that's a good 10 years ago now that, you know, you developed that project, and you know, your approach now, as you say, is it a little more measured? Do you feel it's a bit more mature?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, what I loved about Gaggle was like it was very uncompromising.
Yeah.
So at the time, you know, I suppose I wasn't. I mean, like, I always needed money, but I wasn't so commercially minded. And so, you know, we were never even trying to work with brands. We weren't trying to be influencers. You know, there was nothing about it that was like that. Whereas now with Wakey, you know, Wakey is, you know, a commercial endeavor. It's got a social purpose, but it's, more of a serious business. But Gaggle, I loved how uncompromising myself and the whole group were back then, because I think that in our own way we helped spur on quite a bit of change.
Definitely. I mean, speaking of Wakey, you know, which is kind of the platform where you're concentrating a lot of your efforts right now, which is an incredible platform. It's, you know, with the morning show, and you have the app and the website and all of your social media. I mean, it's very much down the well-being path, you know, and kind of, and especially in this time more than ever, we need that feel-good factor. I mean, just talk me through the journey of how it all came about and why you wanted to start the platform and the show.
Yeah, so I heard about this tech incubator, and honestly, I didn't even know what a tech incubator was. I had no idea.
I don't either. Shall you tell me about it?
This thing that I think the tech and business community kind of have, you know, it's kind of in this world that I never even imagined I'd be part of. And it's basically, there's lots of different incubators, and people should look at them. Even if you haven't got a PhD, you haven't got an MBA, which I have neither of those things, right? But I thought that everybody there would have PhDs, would have MBAs, and I wouldn't be accepted on this program. But I was accepted because they decided they needed more creative people and people from diverse backgrounds. And basically it was 50 people being brought together from across the world to try and come up with ideas for very big businesses. So, you know, we're talking like with 100 million users. So to come up with, you know, huge global businesses, but that have a good social impact. So it's about designing a good social impact in big businesses from day one. So it can't go too wrong. And it's all about really building tech and tech products while on day one you're thinking, how is this going to be good for the world? And so I decided to focus on mental health, because it's been like, I struggled with my mental health, you know, since I was a teenager. You know, I really feel like I've got, you know, myself in a good place now, but, you know, it's something that I know my friends and family also struggle with. And I looked out there on the landscape and I could see that actually most of the products out there were designed and marketed to probably like the top 10% of earners. So they're kind of created with city type A, kind of like really aspirational in this very one specific kind of way kind of person. And I was like, well, that's hardly anybody really. Like, what about everybody else? And that's where the idea from Wakey, that was the first thing, like, what would a mass market platform for mental health look like? And how could it be, how could we do something that was preventative? So it's not about crisis.
Yeah.
Because 80% of our mental health funding goes on crisis, just 20% goes on prevention. So obviously you need really scalable tools that can work on prevention. And so with prevention, you can have, you can create something that's fun, informative, and, a place that people actually want to hang out, like Wakey.
And it's brilliant. It reminds me of the Big Breakfast in that kind of fun, like, morning. Hi guys, it's colourful, it's bright, the lineup's brilliant. You also have, you have amazing informative guests who really know what they're talking about, but it's not so down in the dumps. It's up, it's very up, and with the dog and with Ginger and Chris. And for me, what's brilliant about it is it covers all age groups as well. It could be something that, my son could equally kind of dip in and out of, and it's with the colour and the vibrancy of it. And I think that is what we need. And, when I'm looking through your social media or like clips that you've got on your website of how it's really helped people in this time, it just shows you, we're bombarded with this constant ream of bad stories, negativity, stories that will make people feel even more down, and you taking the initiative to bring this joy and this energy on a daily basis it's amazing, because what people can do is they download the app, don't they, and then they wake up with it.
Yeah, so you wake up with a show. Exactly, you saying it's like Big Breakfast, that was one of our main references. It was like, okay, what are people waking up to at the moment? And, on some of our bigger channels, it can be quite depressing. There's a lot of news-based programs, and it can be quite antagonistic, and it's not necessarily the best thing to wake up to. But also 80% of us go on our phones first thing. Like the minute we open our eyes, we're on our phones. And so we thought, could we have something on our phones that actually helps brighten our day first thing, rather than doom scrolling through Facebook?
Yeah.
We thought, let's create a really fun but short, micro breakfast show, have some brilliantly fun people involved, like Chris Taylor, who was on Love Island, Ginger Johnson, who's an amazing comedy drag queen, and a collection of amazing guests from all over telly and music, and as well as top scientists like Dr. Ian Jordan, who comes on and gives his amazing clinical advice, and just really set people up for a great start to the day. And also, over time, the more you use it, the more tips and tricks you learn for having a really happy and healthy life.
That's what I love about it, is the fact that it's your toolkit. It does build you up as the more you use it, you start building an armor almost. And it's brilliant for that, because it is incredibly informative whilst being joyous. And, the science of Wakey, and how, if somebody, what I also love though is the mainstream viewer can just dip in and dip out. But obviously, if you are a person, I'm that person that suffers really badly with anxiety. It's the whole reason why I took my business in the direction that I did with the Capsule, and wanted to find out more and wanted to pass that information on. But as you said, very much in a similar way to kind of how you've approached Wakey, I wanted it to be for the everyday person, and the everyday woman in particular, the lady that I know is my school mum friend, and isn't that person that's, like you said, in that top 10% that can afford to go on yoga retreats left, right and centre. That doesn't speak to all of us, but for me personally, for our audience, we like a bit of fashion and we like a bit of glamour in there as well. So I totally understand that need for kind of connecting with the everyday person who can dip in and dip out, and we have tools that we can share, but it's not so serious that then it becomes a problem. So then you go, oh, I'm having to watch this because there's something wrong with me. You can think, oh no, actually I can just dip in and out, but I've got that amazing toolkit. Now going down to your presenters, because I love your presenters. You know, when you were selecting them, did you already know the guys, or were you familiar with their work, or did you scout out for them?
Yeah, so we started off doing a few pilots with a few different presenters. We had, in fact, we had people involved from the beginning, like for instance, Denise Welsh. We really wanted Denise on the show. We couldn't quite make it work, but she's been a regular guest, which is great. So I obviously, somebody like Denise I got in touch with because of her, you know, really frank and open way of talking about her own mental health, and she's awesome. But Chris I'd seen on Love Island, and his Instagram was hilarious, and he did a degree in criminal psychology. He's got a really interesting background, and so we just thought, well, let's try him and let's get Ginger. I have worked with Ginger before, you know, fabulously talented comedy writer, writes some of the big pantomimes, you know, writes some great shows around the country, and also a really talented presenter. So I was like, okay, let's get Ginger involved and just see what happens. And then the kind of chemistry between Chris and Ginger, they really are kind of like Johnny and Denise.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's really
it just
funny.
works.
Yeah, it totally just works. I mean, where do you see the future of Wakey? You know, obviously, do you want to move it from it being an app and you know, the website to broadcasting on a national channel? What's the future for it?
Well, I think that we are looking for every possible way to expand what Wakey does. So we're going to be expanding the cast of people on the app in the next 2 months. So there's going to be more and more people joining Chris and Ginger. And we're looking at all kinds of different ways in which we can be across, you know, the socials and the internet. And yeah, there's ways in which we can work with other media platforms, and we're going to be looking at all of that as well.
I would definitely like to see it on my telly in the morning. I think it would just be, we need that. We really, really need that, because as you said, the doom scrolling and how antagonistic, you know, certain news channels are, and purposefully built for debate. And I'm like, I don't want to feel that anxious in the morning. I want to feel light and fun and ready to start my day. I don't want to feel like I've just had an argument with somebody.
I know. And this year more than any, I think. I mean, like, we certainly found with the people who use Wakey that during lockdown, you know, it was for lockdown 1, it was really, really, really tough. And people were avoiding the news, avoiding, you know, even talking about the C word, as they were calling it was, because it was just, it's too much to take in. It really is. I mean, this is a lot. We're all dealing with a lot, and we should all be giving ourselves a pat on the back for managing to get up and just, you know, keep going at the moment. It's tough.
Absolutely. I mean, we should definitely do that, guys. If you're listening in now, make sure you turn around and give yourself a massive pat on the back for just getting this far. We've done ever so well, you know, and we will keep going, all of us collectively. Also, so Deborah, the other thing I really wanted to talk to you about was your book, Outspoken, which is just absolutely brilliant. And the premise of the book of, you know, you hear so much about male speeches, you know, you hear about Winston Churchill and you hear about all these different amazing people that have got these fabulous speeches, but where are the women? And then, you know, your book is just incredible. You've got Jamila Jamil in there, and you've got, you know, Emmeline Pankhurst, and who else have got? You've got Jacinda in there. You know, you've got so many fabulous women. And you're right, you know, why don't we hear about their speeches more often? I mean, tell me about, again, starting that book and your dedication really to getting women's voices heard.
It just comes back to me thinking, okay, what are the sound bites I know? What are the kind of like pieces of, you know, history that I feel like I've heard that where women are kind of sharing with me their experience? And I couldn't think of any. And I could think of one, and it was a Thatcher quote. It was the only one I could remember. And I was like, okay. And this is before, really, I had this idea about 10 years ago. So it was like it was before there'd been this kind of feminist renaissance. And we've got so many women who have done amazing speeches in the past 5 years. But previous to that, you know, and previous to things being shared so much on the internet, there really wasn't much awareness. And so then I went looking for a book, and there was one book, and one book on women's speeches, and it was really dry, like it was very academic. And I was like, well, nobody's going to give this to their, you know, mum for Christmas, or like, you know, this is not going to be celebrated. It's a brilliant book. Like, we need academic books, but it's not something that people are going to gift to each other and, you know, and have as a little lovely possession and kind of, you know, dip into it and get a bit of inspo, you know.
Yeah.
So, so that was the idea. I thought we need to put them together, and also we need to put, you know, a group of women together that we might not like them all, you know, because we don't all like everyone who's in the public eye, but that doesn't mean that they're not worthy of being listened to, you know. So I really believed from the beginning, and when I was talking about the book with Penguin Random House, who ended up publishing it, was that it has to be like a really amazing group of women, but very different, very diverse, women who wouldn't necessarily agree with each other, women I might not even like myself, you know. I want to include them. So yeah, that was the mission, and to make it something that was accessible, that you could give to your gran, or your gran could give to you, and that you can just dip into and look at the different categories, like, you know, love, or work, or the future, or war.
That's what I love about it, to be honest. It's that I've talked about this on the Capsule before, about how it's so important to share stories, because there might be one nugget in that story that's really relevant to you. And as you said, it could be somebody who's done something terrible, or not led a life that you would approve of whatever, but there might be something in it that gives you a slight understanding as to why a person's made a decision, or what their thinking was at that time, and how you can either learn to follow it or go against it, you know. And I think that that's so important, that we do speak out, and that we do, you know, again, have platforms to hear women speak, and to hear their choices. I mean, there was even like Rebecca, the film at the minute, you know, some of the things that she does, or Mrs. Danvers does, and it's not nice, and we don't like them, but it's an interesting story. I love seeing women portrayed in the media, especially or you know, in film or in books, when they're not angels, when they're really flawed, as we all are. You know, none of us is a saint. We've all got some form of baggage, one way or another, but it's interesting to explore that. It's interesting to, you know, understand it, the psychology of women, because only then will we have more compassion for each other and understanding. And it really reminded me of the play Top Girls, in the second half of the play, you know, when you've got everybody sat around the table, all those famous women having that dinner party. And when I was looking through your list of different women, I was like, wow, what a dinner party that would be, of all these, you know, women from history. Then you've got the rebels and all these different girls. But as you said, you know, if back then, in 10 years ago, you could only find one book, it's important to bring these things to the mainstream. I love the books of is it Little Person Big Dreams, that, you know, the series of books that are for children, about, like, there's one about Coco Chanel, there's one I think again about Emmeline Pankhurst, and it's to teach children, boys and girls, about the amazing things that women have done. So, you know, you gift those to people, and as you're saying with your book, gift it to your grandma, to your mum, for inspiration of when you're having a bad day. And I really love that. I mean, again, I heard that you were going to produce a show for the book. Is that still going to go ahead?
Yeah, so we've done a couple of versions of the show. We did want to launch it at Soho Theatre, and it's one of my favourite things to do. It's so emotional. We had Grace Campbell, who's a really interesting, she's Alistair Campbell's daughter, and she's a comedian. She's
brilliant.
She's got her own book coming out at the moment, but she performed in it. Angela Scanlon off the telly. She came and she's great, isn't she? And it's a real tearjerker, because when you hear some of these speeches read out loud, they are powerful, like really powerful. So my dream was to actually kind of do the show, kind of an audio version of the show, or even kind of like some video version of the show, but there's been absolutely no time for that this year at all. So maybe in the future. But I think with the book, like, I'm with you in that, you know, the beautiful thing about having all these diverse voices together is not only can we be inspired, but we can learn. And because the only way to learn is to hear things you haven't heard before. you know, if you hear the same thing over and over again, you're just in an echo chamber. So it's like, it's a chance to really like grow, even if you
Definitely.
don't agree with it, you
Well,
know.
this is it, and I think 2020 has been the year for uncomfortable conversations across the board. And
Mm,
for me, that's something that, again, it's very necessary. And
mm.
whether you agree or you don't agree, the fact is we're talking about it, and that's really good because it means we're able to put it under the spotlight, whether it's good or bad. We're able to kind of learn and change and move forward from it as well, not make the same mistakes. And rather, as you just said then, or you just keep going down that same path, and then you've got the same aggressions and the same frustrations and discriminations. And we have to kind of bring these things out to the fore, don't we, and get them out there and get talking. But yeah, it's such an amazing book, and everyone should definitely go and check it out. It's Outspoken. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Now, going back to your own kind of mental health and your journey with it, as you said earlier, it started when you were a teenager, but how in periods in your life has it been, worse than others, and how have you managed to kind of navigate through that?
Yeah, so it started in my teens. I started, I think I first got diagnosed with depression when I was about 15. And I wonder, actually, looking back, how much was, how helpful that was, really. But
Yeah.
that was in the 90s. I think mental health, we're only just beginning to tackle it now, really, in the open air. So, but it was really in my 20s that I really struggled. I moved to London. London's a very overwhelming place. I think we build up a resilience to flinging ourselves around these cities with millions of people around us, jam packed, and it's very competitive, and there's a kind of dog eat dog kind of element to it, and none of that was good for my mental health. And I had a breakdown, I think, when I was about 24, 25, and really have a few years where I found it really hard to work. I was on quite strong medication, and just trying to get myself together. And it was actually a book that helped inspire me find the way out, because I'd had like lots of sessions of CBT through the NHS, and they hadn't worked. They were great sticking plasters, but they were not they weren't getting to the root cause. And this guy, he gave me this book, completely unsolicited, called The Golden Notebook by Doris Lessing. And it's about a woman living in London in the 60s, I think. And she is having psychotherapy. And I didn't really know anything about psychotherapy. And I was reading and I was like, oh my God, that like she's getting to explore her childhood, her life, and how this has made her the person she is. And exploring it is helping her kind of become stronger and more resilient and understand herself. And so I managed to find myself I think probably the world's cheapest psychotherapist, who cares so much about helping people, that has a very, very sliding scale to the point where I could afford it. And and if I think if I hadn't have had that therapist, I don't think I'd be here, actually. So
Really?
yeah, so I think that talking therapies, but really deep talking therapies, that was the secret for me. It's not the secret for everyone, but I didn't even know it was an option, and I certainly didn't know that there were people out there who made it affordable for people. But even what I considered affordable at the time, which was about 20 quid a week, isn't affordable for some people. But now, I've had years of therapy. I'm trying all kinds of different things at the
And
moment.
I was going to say, is that something then, if you can feel, because, with depression and anxiety, it never really disappears. It's always going to be part of your makeup, I suppose, in some respects. And so, it's having that toolkit, isn't it? Going back to what we said at the beginning, kind of, is that something then that you go, when you can feel overwhelmed or, into the place where you go, do you go, right, I now need to go and see X, Y, and Z and just sort it out? Like medication, it is that form of, and would you say that's your anchor for it?
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things I go to. I noticed during lockdown that I started doing things I haven't done for years. I started drinking coffee again. I haven't drunk
Right.
coffee for years. And that's so interesting, because it's all about adrenaline and kind of like, you know, and I didn't take a holiday this year until 2 weeks ago, actually. And that's something I haven't done for years either, because I know how important holidays are to me. And it was just at the end of the summer, I was going, hang on a tick. I'm doing all the bad things. Like, why am I keeping myself, you know, all hyped up on coffee, you know, almost keeping an anxious level to try and get through, you know, what I'm treating as a bit of a crisis? And why am I not giving myself the rest? And so, yeah, it's that ability to be able to reflect on your behavior, on how you're feeling, and then make changes, you know, will make things easier in the long run. But it's that reflection. And I think through I wasn't taught reflection. My family didn't do it. They weren't analyzing their behavior. You know, they were too busy trying to pay the bills, you know. But I think that kind of learning that art and science of like reflecting on how you're feeling, how you're living, what your behavior is, and then making tweaks to make life easier and a bit happier. That's fundamentally, I think, what therapy has given me is that like moment of being able to go, hang on a tick, what am I actually doing here? Is best for me.
And it's giving yourself that permission to pause. And so many of us don't do that. We talk about it an awful lot on this podcast, but it still kind of needs people need reminding of it. Like, you know, it's all right. Have a break. I really hope that when people are listening to this, they're sat down with either a cup of tea, a glass of wine, or whatever it is they want, and they're chilling out, because I want people to be able to have that pause button, and as you said, time for reflection and just to listen and zone out for a little bit. It's really important, and we've had it so much conditioned into us that if you stop, you're not working hard enough, you're not performing well enough, you're selfish if you look after yourself first. And, you know, I'll bang the drum forever, me, about no, take a break, it's self-care, look after yourself, cheers yourself, because nobody, you know, you need to be your own cheerleader, and you need to be able to kind of look after yourself and parent yourself as well, you know, speak to that inner child and just say, give yourself a hug, it's going to be all right. But I think that now, you know, we're able to have these conversations, aren't we? I mean, 10 years ago, crikey, I know I wouldn't have had this conversation, that's for sure. It's so much better for us to at least be able to even laugh about it, you know, and have it so open. Do you agree?
Oh my God, yeah. I think being able to be open about it is really important. And I think that, you know, there's encouragement all across the board now, you know, to do that. I also think it's important that there are services there to actually help people, and that people access those services when they need to. And I think when you're talking about self-care, it is the most important thing. It is literally, if you're on a plane and you're told, put your own oxygen mask on before you put on the oxygen mask of somebody else. That is the principle. If your cup isn't full, you can't be pouring into other people's cups. So you need to be looking after yourself. It's just so important. It's the most important thing, and it's not selfish. It's how you can be the best you and be there for other people, is by looking after yourself.
Definitely. It is so hard to overcome that thought process, though, you know, after so many years, isn't it? Like when we do events and things, and, you know, we put our hands up and I speak to women and I'm like, who feels like this? Like me. You know? And then I want to cry then, because I'm just like, I want to go out and hug everybody, because I just think collectively we're all in this, like, we've got all this stuff bubbling underneath, and nobody dares say anything because they need to keep this veneer up. And particularly with social media, I mean, what's your reaction to that? You know, obviously it's a double-edged sword, isn't it, social media?
I'm not very good at it. I'm trying to get better at it, but and I'm not good at it in the I just thought I've got this kind of aversion to treating myself as a brand, you know. But I suppose that the thing that's bad about it is there's all kind of like feeling any pressure to do anything other than what we really need to do for ourselves. And the worst thing about social media is basically just trying to fit in. It's a classic. It's just everybody trying to fit in, and it's so normal. It's just a continuation of everything from school. We're all the time, and we see other people who seem to be doing it really well, and we try and emulate them, or we get annoyed with them, and, you know, and upset with ourselves. And, Yeah, it's complicated because I do think it's a tool for good, but at the same time, I think that it plays to some of the things inside us that are really difficult.
I agree with you for that whole school playground thing, you know, and high school thing, particularly with women as well. Well, actually, no, across the board now. I think I'm seeing it everywhere. And I'm seeing it so much with a lot of the younger generation as, you know, wanting to fit in, as you said, and the rise of like lip fillers and surgery and all kinds of mad stuff, you know, and it is hard. The relationship that you have with it's hard because you know equally it can do so much good. You know, it can allow you to reach so many people and say hello and go good morning and be bright and, you know, hopefully brighten somebody's day. But then equally you've got to kind of, yeah, it's a hard one. It is a hard one because you want to be able to reach those people, but equally there is a certain game, I suppose, that needs to be played. And I think for me, I think the more there's a balance of being, you know, okay, this is a business post, so to speak, and this is a normal post. This is, I think, having that balance for me works because I think then you get to see a broader spectrum of somebody, or at least the, you know, the background behind the gloss. Because I think when it's glossy all the time, it's lovely to look at, and I love looking at people. I'm like, oh, that's lovely. Oh, I really want that. but then I'm like, I haven't got that, and now I feel really bad about myself. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that does that. But it is, yeah, it's a tough one, social media, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that we're just learning. We're all social media babies, aren't we? I mean, Instagram wasn't even around a few years ago. None of us have grown up with it, apart from people who were very, very, very young. So, like, we don't really know what we're doing. We're all exploring it. It's the Wild West. It's a playground, and that's fun. I just think it's always important for people, you know, to remember that you know, really everybody's just trying to fit in, and including the people you look up to, and it's like there's nothing wrong with standing out, not caring about it, not engaging with it, doing it however you want to do it. And especially because it is a bit of a playground, like not all the rules have been set. You know, even all the guys who own the big social media platforms were talking to the American government yesterday because there are no rules, and they haven't been set yet. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to try new things. And actually, the way we do it now may not be the way it is in even 2, 3, 5, 10 years time. It's all going to change again. You know, TikTok. You know, every year there's a new.
I get so stressed by TikTok. You know, when in the lockdown when everyone was doing like the dances and stuff, and I was like, oh, I wonder if we should do that more as a hobby for me and my son. I wouldn't be able to get my husband involved, but my son, and even he was like, oh, mummy, this is too much. You know, and it's just like, I can't cope, I can't keep up. I'm like, TikTok, I can barely do an Instagram post. It's too much.
Yeah, I think we've just all got to have fun with it. And like you said, like making a kind of distinction between, okay, this is business and this is fun, and where you choose to have both of those parts of yourself. I think that's a really good idea.
I personally, I think it's something that I really want to stick to. And, you know, you can be tempted. They can be tempted when you have a business because people want to see they almost want to see the continuation of the business. And it can, and, you know, and they're willing to probably, you know, want you to monetize it more. But then in doing so, you sacrifice yourself, and then you sacrifice all those people that, like I said in the beginning, you know, I'm a school mum at the end of the day. That's who I am, and I love my school mums group, and we all bandy together, and we have a WhatsApp group, and we're all there to help each other out when we've gone wrong, or we go, oh, it's PE day, it's book day, and I want all those people to still see that side of me, and I think it's important as well that, you know, you do remain and have that personality, that person, so you're still a person and not be too tempted, although it can be tempting, you know, but again, you've got to kind of, as you said, stand your ground in the playground and have something that you believe in, and that you really want to stand up for. I mean, going to that, actually, you know, you've said before you're a real feminist, and I want to know what you think that 21st century feminism looks like, because it's so, for me, you know, I see amazing women that have claiming their bodies, and then they're like, I'm a feminist, and it's just such a complex area, isn't it? What would you say it is?
I think that feminism has been through lots of different waves. We're on the fourth wave. So basically there's been like 3 waves before where feminism has got a bit popular and then kind of died down again. And we're on the 4th one now. It's a bit popular. And for me, I think the distinct kind of character of this kind of feminist time that we're in now is that you choose what you want to do and your choice is the right choice. And that's the only thing that I think really is the same message across everybody, because feminism is just so diverse, and like not everybody agrees on everything, and that's how feminism I think has to be. It's not one homogenous group of people who all agree with each other. It is lots of different groups and individuals who some have very passionate beliefs and argue with other groups that have very passionate beliefs, and some have no passionate beliefs and are just like, well, I just want to get paid what I should be paid, and I just want help, being a mum, and I just want to be able to, live my life and be responsible and a kind person, and that's it. But there's other people who have kind of bigger political ambitions, and it's a diverse range of people, and you can't really sum it up. So my attempt at the beginning of this whole kind of spiel I'm on was that's the best I can do, which is you choose what kind of feminist you want to be.
But I agree with you. For me personally, I would say I'm a feminist, but in the sense that I would support any woman making a choice that she wants to make for herself in her circumstances. And
yes.
That for me is like, right, okay, good, you do you. Because you're the only person living your life, and you're making a decision based on your arena, really. And if that works for you, I'm really happy that you've got the opportunity to live as you want to live. Now that for me is kind of how I see it, and that can be, I want to wear sparkly heels, dresses, everything, miniskirts, whatever. And equally on the flip side, whatever the polar opposite is, I just think it's allowing women to just have that freedom of choice.
I totally agree. And like I said in my book, actually, I get very suspicious of anybody who tells a woman to shut up. So it's like, and that could be a feminist telling another woman to shut up. So it's like, I'm with you. Like, if it's all about trying to liberate ourselves from anything that could be holding us back, really. And I think that, some of the things we're talking about just with the social media thing, you be you, stick to your guns, try not to be, persuaded to do things that you don't, that aren't really you, and just, really dig into yourself and get to, know yourself, and then try and express yourself in a way that makes you feel happy,
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that. Oh, well, Deborah, we have finished up for today, but it's been such an absolute pleasure to chat to you. It's been so inspiring. I really hope that you guys at home have been feeling really inspired as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it. I could continue talking for ages, but I would need another cup of tea.
Well, listen, no, we'll definitely have you back to have a part 2 for sure. Absolutely, that would be amazing. If you'd like more from Wakey TV, you can visit www.wakey.life, where you can catch up with the Wakey family and also download the app. You can also follow them all across social media platforms. Please do all of that I just said, because it's an amazing app and it will really, really brighten your day, lift your spirits, and keep us going through this horrible dark time that we're in right now. If you'd like more wellbeing, fashion and beauty content from us, you can visit us at our website www.thecapsule.co.uk, where you can catch up with our previous podcast episodes by visiting the In Conversation page and subscribing to any of our podcast channels and YouTube. Please do leave us your rates and reviews, as we love hearing your feedback. If you're a social butterfly, you can also catch us on Instagram and Facebook at Official Capsule. I will be back next week with another very special guest, but all that's left for us to say today is goodbye. So it's goodbye from Deborah.
Bye. Have a great day.
Oh, lovely. Yes. And goodbye from me.
This episode of The Capsule in Conversation was brought to you by WeCure. Specialists in EMDR, trauma and mindfulness therapy, WeCure offers one-of-a-kind treatments whilst you reflect and heal in the Mediterranean. Reset your mind and well-being. Speak to WeCure. WeCure.co.uk/capsule.